the first Spotlight in Science that St George's is hosting. Thank you all very much indeed for turning up and for showing your interest today in what I hope will be something that you will become intrigued and want to know a little bit more about. And that's one of the things that the objectives of this exercise is. If you have an interest and you want to find out more, then you can hear about it from what I'm going to say and what everyone else is going to demonstrate and display to you. And then, you know, these interests can develop. The next Spotlight in Science will be in a few months' time, and it hasn't. I think the subject matter is yet to be decided, but the format will be like this. So if you like what's going on here, let's hope we can see some of you again. Now, I'm Sanjeev Krishna. I work mainly in the medical school, and I've had an interest since I was a medical student in tropical medicine, and particularly the subject of malaria. And so what I'd like to do today is just to introduce you to some interesting historical facts about malaria, tell you a bit about malaria itself, and really open thinking about malaria a bit more. The reason why we've chosen malaria today is that it's World Malaria Day. And that started 10 years ago to try and raise awareness about this dreadful disease. And so every year there are lots of activities happening all over the globe to focus on malaria. Now, some of you may remember that it was only last month that Pope Francis was elected a pope. And you may perhaps remember how this happens. The cardinals get together, and they're all sealed off in what's called a conclave. And they have to get their voting sorted. It's a great way to run a committee, I think. You have to get the voting sorted, and you can only come out of conclave once you've agreed the next pope. And, you know, Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope. So what on earth has that got to do with malaria? Well, the voting this time was, I think, relatively straightforward. I think it probably took a week or 2 weeks. Everyone came out. It all went very smoothly. But it wasn't always like that. Because having to elect a pope was extremely risky. Many of the people who were voting, the cardinals, the secretaries who were with them, actually died of malaria when they got into this stuffy conclave. Now, malaria is a huge subject, and all I wanted to do is to give you an introduction to a few areas that we're interested in the history. So one of the areas that we're working on here is somebody that I had a chance to take care of in Thailand more than 20 years ago when I was doing clinical studies there. And this patient has cerebral malaria. So the brain, and this is in fact, his brain capillaries clogged up with these infected red cells because he died of the infection, despite the best treatment that we could give at the time. And malaria produces all sorts of types of patterns of disease. One of them is coma, which can lead to, it's a high-risk complication which leads to death. And there are lots of ways that we're now trying, or people have been trying, to reduce the burden of malaria, which they've been doing very successfully in the last 5 or 10 years. So there are methods involving controlling the mosquitoes, or preventing the mosquitoes from biting using bed nets. Diagnostics, which I'll mention in a minute, is a particularly interesting area. There are vaccines under development. I'll mention how far they've got. But one of the big problems that we're trying to address is also the problem that the parasites can become resistant to drugs really quite quickly for some drugs.
Hello everyone, like Professor Krishna said, my name is Beatrix Theo, and I'm a fourth year medical student here at St George's, and I'm very interested in malaria. Don't mind me, I have a few notes to remind me what to say. Well, my first experience actually of poverty wasn't to do with malaria, but I was in China, and I was 13 years old when I went to a leprosy camp, and they still have a few of those in China, where people who had leprosy a few decades ago were just sort of walled up in a sort of brick compound on top of mountains in China, because they didn't really have treatment, or because culturally they thought these people were kind of disabled and really infectious, and even after they were cured and severely disabled, well, the Chinese government just sort of left them up there. So for those who don't know, leprosy, it affects the nerve endings, so especially in really sensitive areas like your eyes, your hands and your feet. So say if you put your hand in a pot of boiling water, you wouldn't feel it, but obviously you would be in, you would really damage parts of your body. So a lot of these people didn't have any hands, or they were blind, but they were left to fend for themselves, and it was just that was just my first experience. And then when I came to the UK to do medical school, you guys have the NHS, and I feel really fortunate to be here and have just medical healthcare on your doorstep and for free, and it's just something that's just amazing that most of the world doesn't have. And so say if you want to go traveling, you can just pop down to your travel clinic just down the road and get the best prophylaxis there is for you to not get malaria or anything else, vaccinations, really easy. And if you do get sick when you come back, equally you can get treated very easily as well. So how does this link with malaria and how I'm interested in it? Well, there are a lot of papers actually that I looked up which have a lot of links between malaria and poverty. So malaria is just not a disease. It's not just like, say if you're in sub-Saharan Africa, you take a few pills, you get better, you go back to work like you would here. In Africa, imagine you're sole provider for your family. They're depending on you for absolutely everything. So maybe our idea of poverty here is, just living in a state maybe, or not having cable TV, and in Africa it's not even having water. Like that's the sort of difference in what we think.